Good morning from the Daily Misanthrope. There is a complaint against modern life that I share that blames stupidity, the failure of our species to think. But Wednesday's dispatch, or today's dispatch, suggests the diagnosis is wrong. Maybe it's something else. What runs through today's catalog is not the absence of thought, but its selective application. Real effort, genuine ingenuity, occasionally impressive craft, all of it aimed at targets chosen by the lizard brain and abandoned at exactly the moment reflection would have been most useful. Industry without wisdom is not an improvement on laziness. It is, as the evidence will show, considerably more dangerous. We lawyers like to say to juries, the evidence will show in our opening statements. Well, that's what's going to happen here. So today's folly of the day. Consider the labor involved. A glue trap fixed to the end of a belt, lowered into a federal mailbox, pressed to an envelope, reeled back up, and then repeated across 20 Suffolk County towns in a single day until 6,750 checks worth nearly $5 million sat in a car beside a loaded 9mm pistol. Well, this is not the work of men who couldn't be bothered. It is the work of men who cared enormously and who thought about it, planned, and they refined a technique, and they put in the hours. The scheme demands a kind of respect that the final step revokes completely, because the final step was posting the stolen checks for sale on social media. You guessed it, social media, which is to say they built an extraordinarily patient fishing rod and then handed the police a map, a confession, and a timestamp. The engineering is genuinely impressive, but the marketing strategy is a gift to prosecutors everywhere. Social media, what a disaster for mankind. But in any event, so what else? Let's see. From The Wire on the website. He walked into Sotheby's, an institution whose entire commercial reason for existing is the detection of exactly what he was attempting. Caring for not quite antiquities and the paperwork to launder them into legitimacy. The Providence documents announced 1976. The printer that produced them had not yet been invented. And the typeface used would not be designed for another quarter century. Way to go, guy. There is a particular species of confidence required to counterfeit the past for the benefit of the people who authenticate the past for a living. And it produced, in the end, its own perfect artifact, a document that proved nothing about the statues and everything about its author. That's really dumb, because you'd think they would have bothered to get the printer correct and use something from 1976, but I guess not. Well, we also have the drunk driver who arrived at a police station to collect a friend, recently arrested for drunk driving. Didn't merely commit an error in judgment, of course. He committed an error in judgment at the one address in any municipality guaranteed to be staffed around the clock by professionals whose specific vocation is the identification of drunk drivers. And then, apparently, unsatisfied with the irony, the guy steered into a restricted area in full view of them. Wow. The field sobriety test that followed was less an investigation than a formality. The building had already done the detective work on video. Way to go, guy. You're doing great. Let's see, what else? Again, social media flourishing. A TikTok creator visited a regional grocery store, found it insufficiently metropolitan, and filmed himself unable to locate hot dogs that appear visibly in her own footage, and expressed genuine astonishment that ordinary people shop this way without apparent distress. The tell is not the complaint. It's whatever. Content requires friction. But the astonishment underneath it, the unfeigned bewilderment that other lives proceed without a camera to dignify them. She went looking for content and came back with a mirror, which she has confidently misidentified as a small town grocery store. Okay. Maybe stay away from TikTok lady for a while. You're not Kim Kardashian. Let's see. Oh, my favorite section, black-robed egomania. This is a good one. A federal judge, a man whose career is the formal business of measuring other people's lapses and assigning them a price, consequences, blew a .27 on the shoulder of a Michigan road after his Cadillac introduced itself to two road signs. Woo, .27. When the trooper asked him to recite the alphabet, he produced A, B, C, D, F, U. The letters he elected to skip are the whole argument. Enough years on the bench had apparently persuaded him that rules were a thing he administered rather than a thing he obeyed. And A, B, C, D, F, U is simply that conviction stated plainly to the one audience constitutionally empowered to push back. The robe, it turns out, does not come with a blood alcohol exemption. I'm sure he said something like, "Do you know who I am? Don't you know me? Do you know who I am? I'm a judge." I'm sure the officer was probably really impressed by that. Not. Then the siren ledger. A retired man in Florence, Alabama, moved $220,000, his entire life savings, through a Coinbase account and into the wallets of strangers, because a person on Telegram named, wait for this, Bella, who described herself as a 23-year-old woman, told him she loved him and that the returns were certain, guaranteed. Each claim the scheme required him to believe rested on the same foundational premise, that he was the exception, the one retiree, a young stranger on a messaging app, genuinely wanted. Maybe because he was so handsome. The one small investor for whom the guaranteed return was, this time, actually guaranteed. The scam did not defeat his judgment so much as rent his vanity and bill him monthly until the account was empty. $222,000, folks, his entire life savings. Well, I don't know what to say. This is a full Walken reading. Oh, Campus Watch. Don't send your kids to college, folks. Karo Nageb returns to the American campus and finds a student body radiating confidence in inverse proportion to its command of basic facts. Pause after each straightforward question being, as ever, the sound of tuition doing its quiet, expensive work, and student debt doing its long-term, expensive work. This is all on the Daily Misanthrope site today. Please like and subscribe. Give it your good effort. Smash the like button and stay disappointed, friends.